Mr. Scary Studios. Number 1.
There's an incident that still troubles me all these years later. I was fairly young when it happened, and it all began after I got the board game, Operation, on my birthday. If you're unfamiliar with the game, it involves trying to carefully remove ailments from a fake patient. If you're not careful, the tweezers would hit the metal edge of a cavity opening, triggering a buzzer sound that indicates you lost that turn. I would sometimes pretend to operate on my dolls, although I got in trouble repeatedly for using a real knife from the kitchen. However, my parents became especially concerned once I explained to them that I thought my clown might need an operation. I distinctly recall them looking at one another with a confused expression, and then looking back at me saying, "But you don't have a clown, son." "Sure I do. He's in the closet and watches me at night." My parents immediately ran to check my closet. After scouring every inch of the closet and the rest of my room, my parents exhaled a sigh of relief and told me that my imagination was so good that they had actually believed me. I insisted that I was telling them the truth, and they responded with an unconcerned, "Sure you are, son, sure you are." That night, the clown visited me like he always did. He told me it was a good thing that I left my bedroom window unlocked for him. He would keep me company throughout the night, usually just watching me from my closet and drinking something out of a paper bag until he passed out. He was always gone by the time I woke up the next morning. I rarely spoke with him because he told me that there would be consequences if I didn't keep quiet. I kind of felt sorry for the clown because I knew he hadn't been feeling well since he first visited me, and it was clear that he was only getting worse. After I heard him repeatedly gasping for air one night, I asked him if he needed new batteries. He muttered something like that. "Kid, where do your batteries go, Mr. Clown?" I asked. He laughed and tapped his heart with his index finger. The next morning, I told my parents I needed batteries for my clown. They looked at each other and smirked. They told me that none of my dolls used batteries. I insisted, saying, "Mr. Clown needs new batteries." He said so himself. They looked at each other, not sure how to react. Finally, my mom agreed to give me batteries and placed them on my nightstand, assured me that I could give them to my clown that night. The next day, my mom entered my room to wake me up for breakfast. Instead, she let out a scream. My dad raced in and called the police, telling them that there was a dead man dressed as a clown in my closet. My mom gasped when her eyes finally moved away from the closet and focused on my nightstand. The batteries were gone. In their place was a bloodied knife and a pacemaker.
Number 2.
"She's perfect. So are we going to go to your place after this?" she asks. "Met her this month. It's been rough. Really 7 months, 7 girls, but I have a good feeling about her." Hello?" I come back to reality with a start. Sorry. I was distracted by your eyes, gray-green, God's gift to her and me." She laughs, rests her chin on the back of her hand. "She's tempting me, and by God, it's working." "So," Jessica asks. So what?" Smooth. "Are we going to your place?" I hesitate. Going back to my place is the last thing I want to do. She licks her lips while I waste seconds, blinks 3 times, coughs into her hand, then blinks 2 more times. I cannot take my eyes off her. "Well, I have some, cleaning up to do, and I'm not really sure if I unravel my excuse. I mean, your place is fine." "Oh, come on. We've been going to my place for weeks," she pouts. "It's getting kind of boring. The waiter comes around with our orders. Thank God, maybe now she'll So what about it, if she asks? Shit. Well, maybe. What could go wrong? Maybe it'll be okay. I notice her smile, the dazzling smile, start to wilt. Well, I'm sure. Yeah, sure. Why not? The corners of her mouth go right back up. The jazz band plays on as we talk about things. You know, I never asked you. Did you have anyone before me? She hesitates. Don't worry, I've told you before. I've had my fair share of women as well. She laughs. I guess to break the tension. Yeah, a few. They treated you all right. Some of them, yeah, nothing much. It's in the past anyways. I don't know what to say. I have my lips half parted. Instead, I closed them, put my hands over hers. There are just some things that don't need to be said. 5 minutes of silence between us. 5 minutes of heaven. So your place, she asks. I nearly have a breakdown then and there. I pull myself together. Yeah, just have to pay for this. God damn it. Why do they take so long with the bill? Took them another 15 minutes to bring the bill over, another 5 to pay, never going there again. The drive over to my place was long and silent. She was looking at me the whole time. I guess she could see me hyperventilating. God damn, I must look like a creep, don't I? I joke. At least I did something right. We were laughing all the 5 minutes it took us to reach my place. Nah, I understand. You're nervous, she says as she climbs out of the car. When I open the door, she starts laughing again. Where's that mess you were talking about? The place was spotless. We sit down in front of the television, watch some soap opera. I'm not even paying attention. All I can feel is the warmth of her body curled up against me. I didn't want to lose her. I couldn't lose her. The credits roll. Would you mind sleeping over tonight? Asked Jessica. I want to say no. Please just let me say no. Yeah, why not? We talk a bit before we go to sleep. So, what about the first one, she asks. The first one? The first one of what, I ask her. The first girl you ever met. The only girl you ever married. She replies, yeah, what about her? How was she? How did you and her? She was the best woman I ever met, just like you. She loved me. Not just my looks. She loved my personality. She was always interested in me, the things I did, where I went, what I did. She was always there to support me. I guess that's why I married her. How did she leave you? Asked Jessica. She didn't. She fell down the stairs and broke her neck. What? I'm so sorry. No, it's not your fault. It's okay, I sighed. You know, she was always so possessive. Almost never left my side. I never thought that I would be the one to lose her. She was so possessive. Jessica breathing slows down, becomes deep and uniform, fast asleep. She still is, I mutter. I have trouble falling asleep that night. I just stare at the ceiling listening to Jessica's breathing. Maybe it would be alright when I wake up. Jessica was rolled away from me, I pray. I pray for 10 long minutes. Then finally I reach out with my hand, search for her, touch a cold, still mass. I start to cry. Cold, dead tears roll down my face. I sit up, turn her over, stare into her face, her bloody, empty eye sockets. I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have. I speak to her corpse. I understand once again the meaning of too little, too late, like I've seen 7 times before. The 9th girl I ever loved, the 8th girl that died by my hands, dead because I couldn't help myself. It's in the corner, like always. I turn to face it, a black rotting body covered in writhing shadows, a bent and twisted neck. Why? I scream at it. If you ever loved me, you'd let me move on. Why won't you let me move on? It doesn't speak, just floats there, watching me with dull, glassy, unmoving eyes. There's no point in reasoning with it. It's not her, I tell myself. It's just a spirit, a part of her, a part that refuses to let me fucking move on. There's no point. I turn away and pick up the 8th girl. No, not the 8th girl. Jessica, I picked up. Jessica. I drive for 3 straight hours, take the shovel out of the back, dig the 8th grade, bury my mistake, and try to prepare for the mistakes that are yet to happen.
Number 3.
Something strange happened to me last night, and I don't have any idea what to do. First, a little background. I'm an airline pilot for a regional airline out of St. Louis. I've been there about 3 years, flying CRJs through the skies for the likes of Delta and United. Last night I was assigned as captain for a trip from St. Louis to Chicago, then Chicago to Missoula, Montana. When I showed up at the plane, I was pleased to see I'd be flying with Rick, one of the more seasoned first officers. I completed my checklist, and we were pushed back from the gate at 6 p.m. The first leg was uneventful. The skies were clear as we watched the sunset from 37,000 feet. It was during the next leg that things began to unravel. After the cleaning crews finished and the passengers were boarded for Missoula, I checked the weather on our route. There were some scattered thunderstorms over the Dakotas, but overall it looked to be fairly smooth right ahead. I had let Rick fly the first leg, so it was my turn. As we pulled out onto the runway and were cleared for departure, I pushed the throttles forward and we sank back into our seats as 26,000 pounds of thrust shot into the night sky. I decided to hand fly for a bit, seeing as there wasn't weather in our vicinity. It's a skill a lot of pilots don't keep up with, so I try to practice as much as possible. I followed the departure procedure as we banked to the west and began to climb up to our cruising altitude of 41,000 feet, out of 18,000. I had Rick turn on the autopilot as we settled back into our routine. It was just after 9 p.m. We watched the sun complete its descent as it continued to darken outside and the stars began to cast their light across the skies. I turned down my display since it seemed quite bright, and stared out of the heavens above us. As we reached our cruising altitude and the autopilot commanded the airplane to level, I could see a green light ahead of us. I thought it was another airplane passing in front of us at first, since green is the color of right wingtip navigation lights on all aircraft. I watched the light across in front of us from the left to right. And just as my suspicions were about to be confirmed, the green light doubled back in front of us. I glanced down at the TCAS display, our version of the fish finder, which shows other aircraft above and below your altitude. But there wasn't anything showing. "You see that?" Rick asked. "I do nothing on the TCAS. Why don't you ask Center if there's any military traffic up there?" I said. "Center, Blue Streak 3611. Are you showing any traffic ahead of us?" "Negative, Blue Streak. The skies are all unintelligible." The radios went cracky as if we were flying through a thunderstorm. But the skies were still clear. Rick tried to radio a few more times, but there was nothing. "Try COM 2. Still nothing," Rick said. "That's so weird." We began to pick up a hum through the static. The hum became louder and louder until it drowned out the static entirely. It sounded like a transformer almost, but much louder. I reached down and spun the volume knob down on my radio, but the hum kept increasing. I threw off my headset and glanced over at Rick. He was staring straight out of the window, his face green from the glow outside. "Rick!" I yelled. He just kept looking straight ahead, his mouth hung open. He was beginning to drool. "Rick!" Outside there was an intense green light. It was completely blinding. Out of habit, I made another radio call to center. Nothing. I turned off the autopilot and made a bank away from the blinding light, but no matter which way I turned, it was still the same. I had to squint to make out instruments on the cockpit display. I turned back towards Rick, and he was staring at me now, his mouth still wide open, drool gathering on his chin and running down his white shirt. Rick was there staring at me, and then he was gone. There was no sound. He was just disappeared right in front of me. That was the last thing I remember before waking up in Missoula. I checked the news and there was nothing about our flight. I went on the website we use for dispatch information, and it showed that my flight landed schedule. I don't really know what the hell is going on. My flight landed on schedule. I don't really know what the hell is going on. I tried asking the front desk about Rick, but they said I arrived by myself. None of it makes any sense, and I know I'll sound crazy if I try telling the police or my company what happened. They'll think I've lost my mind. The thing is I feel like I'm being followed now. When I was walking back up the stairs to my hotel room, after checking with the front desk, I heard the front door open from somewhere below me. Footsteps were coming up the stairs, and when I looked down, I could make out a thin gray hand grasping the rail. Its skin looked slick in the dim light. I hurried back to my room and closed the door, locking it twice. I put my ear to the door and could hear footsteps coming down the hall. As it neared my room, the lights dimmed. I could hear raspy breathing coming from the hallway. It just stood there for what seemed like minutes, but I was afraid to look and see what was there. All of a sudden, the lights in the room grew bright, and I could smell what I can only describe as burnt matches. I gathered my courage and looked in the peephole, but there was nothing there. I'm still in the room, afraid to go out there. What's following me, and what the hell happened last night? Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.